donuts are great. Jelly-filled are my favorite.
That's the last of the bean tacos.
It's a common sentiment that anime dubs are kinda bad. There are many reasons for this, whether it's due to them trying to match the lip flaps more accurately, or translating something that doesn't really make sense outside of Japanese culture, or what will often come up, they'll just arbitrarily decide to change things, cause they want to.
So what do you want to be when you grow up, Gohan?
An orthopedist.
Most people note the Dragon Ball dub is quite rough, and made quite a few major changes to the story, but despite that, many people still prefer the dub, as that's the way they originally experienced the story. Interestingly, when it was time to dub Dragon Ball Kai, a version of the story that cuts out unnecessary filler, the dub team took it as an opportunity to somewhat fix the dub, and more faithfully translate the series. But we're not talking about Kai today. Most people know how inaccurate the original dub was, but most people don't actually realize just how bad it was. I've had this discussion with a few people, and a line I will often say is they misinterpret scenes like every 20 seconds. This is not an exaggeration. Often when I collect clips for videos, I'll view the series with dub audio, but also with the English subtitles turned on.
And besides, it's not every day you get a chance to be trained by Korin himself.
So I hear the English audio while a more accurate translation of the original scene appears on screen. My goal here is to share some of the worst examples of this, to really get across just how bad it gets. There's a lot to talk about in terms of the Dragon Ball dub, between the shift from the Ocean dub to Funimation, to the many re-edits of the Funimation dub, but that's a topic for another video. Essentially, I'll just say I'm going to cover the Funimation dub's most recent release, as I hear it's somehow even worse than the original, and I'm starting with Dragon Ball Z, just like them. Also, just to be clear, there's a ton of small one-off lines that are incorrect that I won't mention, just know there's a ton of little things I'm not including. So in episode 1, Goku brings back a big tree for firewood. In the original, Chi-Chi only cares where Gohan is, but the dub has her show concern for Goku over carrying a heavy tree. Then when Raditz confronts Piccolo, Piccolo is interested about who he is and why he's there, ready to throw hands. But dub Piccolo keeps telling Raditz to get lost, saying he doesn't want to fight. It's also here in the dub that Raditz starts talking about his technique, the double sundae, but it's actually a plot point later that Raditz doesn't have any techniques, and is shocked that Goku and Piccolo have special moves that power them up. So while in the original, he just doesn't have techniques, in the dub, he does, but they're all just pet names he gives his generic ki blasts that don't actually do anything. Oh, and here's our first example of the dub adding in random monologues during silent scenes. You can tell Funimation thinks very little of their audience's intelligence, cause instead of letting the silent imagery visually communicate things to us, they will consistently add monologues, where a character narrates whatever is happening on screen. In this one, Raditz explains to us that Goku was sent to Earth as a baby. This one is very weird, since Raditz will directly say all of this later in the next episode, so we're kind of ruining the later reveal by pre-explaining it here. Now in the second episode, during the initial scene with Bulma, Bulma talks about how she's having a fight with Yamcha, but the dub adds a line about how Yamcha cheated on her. This is not in the original. Then they replace Bulma asking where Launch is, with her asking about Goku instead. Considering Launch will show up later, this is an odd choice. Then, when Goku arrives and Bulma asks Gohan what he wants to become, instead of saying a scholar, dub Gohan wants to become an orthopedist, which is a type of doctor, but regardless, is a very wrong translation. In episode 3, after explaining that Roshi and Krillin can't be revived with the Dragon Balls again, the dub adds a line where Goku tells them they shouldn't go with him. This line isn't in the original. Then Goku suggests they track Gohan's Dragon Ball to find Raditz, while the dub has Goku be dumb and say he doesn't know what to do, leading to Bulma having the idea to track the Dragon Ball. At that moment, Piccolo arrives, and instead of letting there be a dramatic pause when he appears, the dub fills the silence with casual banter between Piccolo and Krillin. As we approach Raditz, the dub really likes rounding power levels. Like instead of describing Piccolo's level of 322, it's 320. Or, when he takes off his weights, Raditz says 400 instead of 408. Speaking of power levels, my current longtime goal is still to surpass Saiyan Saga Vegeta's power level of 18,000. We're getting really close now, so subscribe to help me get there. When Piccolo and Goku arrive, there's a dramatic silence that the dub of course fills with random banter from Raditz. Then when Goku takes off his weights, the dub has Goku describe how heavy each weight is, but the weight he describes is a lot lighter than they're supposed to be. Oh, and this is pretty bad. In the scene where Raditz tells Goku and Piccolo that the other two Saiyans are stronger than him, the dub just replaces that line with Raditz saying he's only warming up. Episode 4 opens on a dramatic silent standoff that the dub fills with a monologue from Raditz, and after that, there's this particularly awful change in this scene where we really set the stakes. Piccolo asks Goku if he's excited to fight a strong opponent, as Goku saying he's getting excited is a bit of a catchphrase of his. But instead of being excited, Goku says he's terrified. Now, the dub on the other hand, completely removes this dialogue, having Goku instead ask about Gohan, despite the fact that he actually asks about Gohan right after this anyway. So instead of Goku saying he's scared, then asking about Gohan, in the dub, Goku just asks where Gohan is twice. Another thing that's come up a few times now is that the dub really likes the idea of making Raditz racist. He keeps talking about how Piccolo is green. It comes up literally every time he talks to Piccolo, and this is of course not in the original. Now it's about time we talk about the name of techniques. For some reason, the Kamehameha survived being translated, which is actually quite surprising when you think about it. We could easily live in a reality where they renamed it the Aura Blaster or something like that. I bring this up because this is where the Makanko Sapo is translated to Special Beam Cannon. Well, I don't know if I can say translated. Makanko Sapo translates more accurately to Demons Killing Penetrating Light Gun. Now, I want you to look past your nostalgia for a moment and really think about how awful a name Special Beam Cannon is. Specifically, the word special is particularly goofy here. Like it could have been Demon Light Cannon or Penetrating Light Cannon. Special just sounds silly. Now in response to Piccolo's attack, the dub has Raditz respond with his own technique, the Double Sundae. But like I already mentioned, Raditz isn't supposed to have techniques, so this change was very weird. Funnily enough though, we never see the Double Sundae because it gets interrupted both times. Now moving on to episode 5, Goku gets Raditz in the full Nelson, and Goku mentions he didn't grab Raditz's tail again because Raditz could have just cut it off to avoid Piccolo's attack, revealing Goku's initial plan wouldn't have worked. So obviously the dub just removes this line entirely for no reason. After they defeat Raditz, there's this conversation where Vegeta and Nappa discuss the potential of Gohan and half Saiyans in general, but the dub replaces this with them just talking about how they can wish for immortality. Moving on to the 6th episode, Ten Shinhan gets name dropped, and this is the first instance of the dub changing his name to Tien. I'd be curious what made them decide to keep basically all of the names the same except for Ten Shinhan. Technically, Buluma and Kuririn's names are also wrong, but their names are more so changed because they're hard to pronounce, opposed to Ten Shinhan. My best guess is they just actually misread his name and thought Shinhan was his last name, but I have no idea where the I in Tien came from. Meanwhile, in the other world, King Yenma says Goku could go to heaven due to his achievements, and warns him that the Snake Way sucks and is dangerous. But the dub reframes it, having Yenma say Goku is only allowed to attempt Snake Way because of his achievements, not even mentioning heaven. Then, there's a joke about how Kami doesn't have a sense of humor that the dub removed. And after that, there's a joke about Goku not being healthy because he's dead. That was also removed. The dub seems to have a trend of trying to make the series more serious, of course requiring them to remove these pesky comedy scenes. Once they get to Snake Way though, the guide tells Goku it's 1 million kilometers long, but very bizarrely, the dub changes this to 10,000 miles, which is literally less than 2% of 1 million kilometers. I'm not sure why the dub decided to significantly nerf Goku's feet here. In episode 7, we get this scene with Kami and Popo, where they discuss how people killed by demons like King Piccolo don't go to the afterlife, and instead drift in a sort of purgatory. But when Piccolo Jr. killed Raditz and Goku, they went to the afterlife. This scene foreshadows that Piccolo Jr. isn't pure evil like his father, but the dub just removes it, and has Kami say it's good that Goku died so he can train with King Kai. Then, there's this 2-minute long section where we watch Gohan struggle in the wild after Piccolo left him alone. Gohan says almost nothing during this scene, so of course the dub has Gohan talk to himself the entire time. Following that, in the 8th episode, Bulma fixes the Scouter, and Bulma reads Roshi's power level. In the original, Roshi just says the Scouter is cool, but in the dub, he randomly starts complaining that his power level is too low, despite having no point of reference yet. Followed by a clip of Goku running down Snake Way. But wait, there's no dialogue in this scene. We better fix that. Let's have Goku complain about how long the road is. Alright, episode 9. So far, we've had at least 2 issues per episode. I wonder if we'll ever find an episode that's just properly translated. This is the filler episode where the stranded robot sacrifices itself for Gohan. This one is so close to being well translated, but it has a few noticeable issues, like how the reason the robot helps Gohan is due to the indirect compliment Gohan gave it, but the dub removes the line where the robot references Gohan's compliment, and at the very end of the episode, we get yet another internal monologue during what was supposed to be a silent scene. Episode 10 starts out weak, with a ton of extra monologues during what were supposed to be quiet scenes with Gohan. That continues into the next scene, that being Yamcha's baseball game, and of course, since this is a baseball game, that gives the dub an excuse to add some announcers who can narrate literally every action that happens on screen for the entire scene. After that, they once again add this non-existent narrative that Yamcha cheated on Bulma, which never happened in the original version. Then we're back with Gohan for some more dub-exclusive internal monologues, and it's really bad this episode. It happens like 5 separate times here. Then, back with Yamcha's group, our gang heads to go train with Kami, but for some reason they think they're going to train with Korin in the dub instead of Kami. The next episode is the one where Vegeta and Nappa visit the bug planet, but the dub gives the bug people a ton of extra dialogue. I counted no less than 10 separate examples where the dub added in extra dialogue. Clearly, someone on the dub team has an insanely short attention span, since they seemingly can't let 20 seconds pass without someone saying something. On the next episode, we start out with some extra internal monologues from both Gohan and Goku. Then, we have Launch trying to win over Ten Shinhan with food, and there's a joke about Ten Shinhan having a hard head, metaphorically and literally, which the dub removes, once again continuing the trend of taking comedy out of the series. After the joke, Launch tries to shoot Chaozu for not understanding what she meant, but since the dub removed the joke, she ends up trying to shoot Chaozu here for no reason. Then, when Bulma and Krillin show up to get Ten Shinhan and Chaozu, Chaozu implies that training with Kami is their chance to get away from Launch, while in the dub, Chaozu implies literally the opposite, feeling bad for leaving Launch behind. Moving on to the next episode, Goku falls into Hell, or should we call it Hiffle, since the dub doesn't like mentioning Hell, preferring to send them to the Home for Infinite Losers instead. Ironically, outside of the obvious removal of the word hell, this is actually the most accurately translated episode by far. Alternatively to that, the next episode opens with an extra dub monologue from Goku, and following that, we get a new kind of monologue. This time, the actual Dragon Ball narrator has left his normal episode recap and outro sections, and is now adding in extra narration during the episode itself. He's here to let us know Piccolo is meditating. I mean, how would we know he's meditating here if the dub didn't explain it to us? Unfortunately, this seems to be a thing they're doing now, as the dub narrator also then goes on to explain what the other Z fighters are doing on Kami's lookout. This is also the Princess Snake episode, and when we first see the Princess Snake herself, all she says is, "What? A visitor?" But the dub has her prepare an entire speech about how lonely she is, not even mentioning the many other extra lines they add here. Now up till this point, I've left the narrator sections mostly alone, but since he's overstepped his boundaries this episode, let's call him out as well. While the original version did have intro and outro narration, the dub tends to greatly extend the dialogue from these sections. The dub narrator will often talk for at least twice as long as he's supposed to. Also, some episodes don't even have narration at the end, but the dub always adds it in. Moving on to episode 15, we get some more intrusive dialogue from the narrator while Piccolo trains. I guess this is gonna keep happening now. A while later into the episode, they also give Piccolo an extra internal monologue as well. That episode ends with Gohan getting washed away at sea, and the next episode opens on some kids poking Gohan with a stick, and of course the dub version gives them a ton of extra dialogue during the establishing shot. This is the episode where Gohan hangs out with some orphaned children. In this episode, we see that the orphans are doing illegal activity and are avoiding the social workers who are trying to help them. But at some point, Gohan mentions that he has a family, and that leads into the kids talking about how they would all like to go to school. This conversation makes the orphan leader realize that he should let the kids be caught so they can have a better life. The issue with this episode is the dub changes the conversation where the kids talk about wanting to go to school, so it essentially cuts out his main motivation for leaving his friends. So him randomly letting them be captured later makes significantly less sense in the dub. But still, I really like this episode, as it has Gohan reach his home by the end, but at the last moment, he decides not to go, as he needs to protect the Earth. but this time, it's his own decision. However, of course the dub kinda ruins this scene too. Piccolo tells Gohan to declare what his mission is, and in the original, Gohan responds that he's there to save the Earth. But the dub has him say he's there to defeat the Saiyans instead, which really doesn't communicate the themes of the episode nearly as well, leading into a speech from the narrator that of course isn't in the original. Next episode, we open on Gohan and Piccolo's training. We're still 6 months away from the Saiyans' arrival, but for some reason the dub changed it to 3 months away instead. Then, we cut to the Z-Fighters' filler time travel adventure. When they first arrive, they appear in a quite creepy environment, with an eerie silence. But don't worry, the dub will fill that silence with some banter from Yamcha and Krillin. The Saiyans here are really just ruthless killers, but the dub has them bantering like some Saturday morning cartoon villains. Once our guys get out of the simulation though, Kami tells them that the simulated Saiyans were only half as strong as an average Saiyan, but the dub has Kami say they were half as strong as Vegeta and Nappa, which is significantly stronger than they were supposed to be. Episode 18 opens on a shot of Goku's old Saiyan pod, and you can probably guess the scene is supposed to be silent, but the dub added in a robot voice saying, "Wake up, Kakarot, destroy all life," over and over, which the pod actually does say one time in a later scene. But instead of saying it just once, the dub has it repeated over and over. The Saiyan pod makes Gohan go crazy, so Piccolo uses the multi-form technique to catch him, and the dub adds in a bunch of lines where the two Piccolos talk to each other. We cut away to Roshi, Oolong, and Bulma, where they have a conversation about how Goku is a Saiyan, establishing the lore to explain why the Saiyan pod is making Gohan go crazy, but the dub basically removes that entire conversation, making this scene completely pointless. This isn't really a dub issue, but this entire episode is a massive anime plot hole, because in this episode, Piccolo destroys Goku's Saiyan pod, but Dr. Briefs will later convert that same pod into the ship Goku takes to Namek, so we should probably just ignore this episode entirely. Okay, episode 19. Goku is finally on King Kai's planet, which means we get King Kai's infamous sense of humor. The entire bit with King Kai is he's constantly trying to make bad puns that aren't funny, but the dub just has him do bad stand-up comedy instead. It's not a problem that they changed the jokes, but they could have easily come up with some English puns instead, which would have been a much better translation of the scene. Not to mention, he makes several other puns during this episode, followed by him laughing uncontrollably to himself. But the dub just removes the pun, so in the dub, he'll sometimes just randomly start laughing to himself for no reason. King Kai then checks how long Goku has before the Saiyans arrive, and they're 158 days away. But for some reason, similarly to before, the dub changes this, for seemingly no reason, having them be 88 days away instead. Then they remove a joke about Goku being hungry despite being dead, followed by the Dragon Ball equivalent of the infamous jelly bean donut scene, with King Kai giving Goku some bean tacos. Back on Earth with Piccolo and Gohan, Gohan talks about how Goku said the reincarnated Piccolo never seemed as evil as the original. But the dub removes this reference to Piccolo's father and just has Gohan say the current Piccolo has changed for the better. Ironically, when we transition back to King Kai, we actually get a really good translation for one of his puns. So clearly they actually do understand what the bit was supposed to be, but of course, they immediately ruin it by removing another joke right after that. Then King Kai thinks Goku might be the person who can master his ultimate technique, the Kaioken. But the dub removes this as well, having him say Goku might be able to defeat the Saiyans instead. Episode 20 starts out with some more of King Kai's puns getting erased, then we transition back to Earth and get some more extra dialogue from the dub narrator, followed by some more dub internal monologues from Piccolo. Then there's this bit where Gohan is trying to play some kind of a word game with Piccolo, but the dub just replaces it with Gohan whining, followed by more added dub narration. Then, Dub Chaozu says Tenshinhan and Yamcha are about equal in power, which is very misleading, as they're definitely not supposed to be equal in power, and that's followed by the lore about the Saiyans and the Tuffles. This scene is shockingly well translated, but it does have one bit where the dub calls the aliens the Saiyans work with the Arcosians. Due to this dub line, people thought that was the name of Frieza's species for years, but in the original, King Kai is way more vague and just says some aliens. Then, at the end of the episode, the dub once again has King Kai say there are 70 days left, despite how there is supposed to be 118 days left. Why do they keep doing this? Back on Earth, fortune teller Baba tries to see what will happen during the battle with the Saiyans. In the dub, she says the Earth doesn't have a future, implying the Saiyans will destroy the Earth. This is very much an incorrect translation. Originally, Baba just says she can't tell what will happen. Now, in episode 21, when the Saiyans arrive, the dub shockingly decides not to narrate a section that is narrated in the original, meaning this is an example of them mistranslating a scene for not including narration. Maybe the narrator was sick that day, but other than the normal minor changes, this episode is pretty good. I think this is a good place to leave off for now. The fact that we're only on episode 21 after all that really shows just how bad it gets. So hopefully I've gotten across how truly atrocious the dub was as an adaptation of the original anime. I thought this was an interesting idea for a video, and if you guys like this sort of thing, I'd love to keep going through Z. So if you want to see that, let me know by leaving a comment and liking the video. But till then, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see ya next time.